In my last couple of videos, I've been blabbering on about how tariffs could shake up economies across the globe, triggering recessions, stagflation, and trade chaos that even the US won't escape. But instead of focusing on who loses, this time, I asked a different question: who survives? More importantly, who thrives? So, I dug deep to find companies that have a strong domestic footprint in the US, businesses that don't get crushed when ports get clogged, or when nations slap tariffs on each other like they're playing a global game of ping pong. After some good old-fashioned research, I identified 3 sectors that seem well positioned to weather the storm: basic materials, energy, and consumer staples. Why these 3? Because some of the organizations in these sectors rely less on global supply chains and more on good old made in America resilience. Before we dive in, a quick but important disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing you hear should be considered financial advice. These are just my observations and research focused specifically on tariff impacts. I do not own shares in any of the companies mentioned in this video, nor do I intend to buy them after releasing it. The purpose of this video is purely educational, to explore which US-listed organizations may be relatively more insulated from tariff impacts and international supply chain disruptions. I have not reviewed their annual reports, quarterly earnings, projected cash flows, or future growth estimates. My views are based solely on their domestic exposure and supply chain positioning within the context of tariff-related risks. This is not a prediction of future outperformance, nor a guarantee these companies will do better than their sector peers or the broader market. I also have not analyzed their debt levels, liabilities, or overall financial health. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions. So, let's talk about the basic materials sector, the first piece in this 3-part series. Basic materials is a sector that doesn't often make headlines. No flashy tech. No billion-dollar IPO hype. Yet, it's the foundation of almost everything we touch, build, and depend on. Basic materials sector is the quiet powerhouse that fuels entire economies from the ground up. These are the companies that dig deep, literally. They discover, extract, develop, and refine the raw materials that serve as the building blocks for modern civilization. From massive open-pit mines to high-tech chemical plants. This sector includes operations in metals and minerals, chemical production, forestry, and construction materials like cement and aggregates. Think of copper wiring in your home, aluminum frames in your windows, steel beams in a skyscraper, lithium in your EV battery, and rare earths inside your smartphone. Every single one of those materials originates from the basic materials sector. It's not just about rocks and chemicals, it's about making modern life possible. This sector feeds directly into downstream industries like infrastructure, electronics, automotive, aerospace, and even clean energy. The industry is vast, and so are its subsectors. You've got your industrial metals, copper, aluminum, steel. Then there's lithium and rare earths, powering the global EV and renewable energy revolutions. We also have commodity chemicals, agrochemicals, and forest products. As the US and China impose trade barriers on each other, resource nationalism is on the rise. And that puts basic materials back in the spotlight. That's where US-based producers start to shine. And it gets deeper. This sector is being reshaped by a bigger force: the energy transition. As the world shifts away from fossil fuels and toward clean energy, the demand for materials like copper, lithium, nickel, and rare earths is skyrocketing. In a world focused on energy security, supply chain resilience, and domestic production, basic materials is no longer just a support act. So, let's meet 5 companies in this sector that stand out from a tariff and domestic exposure perspective. There could be a lot of companies which are doing better than these 5 companies, and well insulated from current market scenarios. I recommend you to carry out your own due diligence and find them. First up, Freeport-McMoRan. Ticker symbol, Freeport-McMoRan is a giant in the US mining landscape. They specialize in extracting copper, gold, and molybdenum, 3 critical resources that quite literally run the world. While the company does have a global footprint, its heart beats strongest here in the United States, especially in Arizona and New Mexico. In fact, Freeport is America's largest copper producer. It operates one of only 2 domestic copper smelters in the entire United States. Every year, that smelter processes around 650,000 metric tons of copper concentrate. That's enough to wire thousands of skyscrapers, power EVs, and support the electrical grid. all without depending on a single container ship crossing the Pacific. Their domestic operations allow them to produce and deliver copper within U.S. borders, bypassing import taxes and avoiding the risks of international trade disruptions. That means no waiting at congested ports, no last-minute substitutions due to export bans, and no sudden shocks from shifting geopolitical winds. And demand for copper in the United States is enormous. From electrical wiring and electronics, to infrastructure, defense systems, and clean energy, copper is the lifeblood. They're not just digging copper out of the ground, they're also refining and processing it themselves. This gives them end-to-end control over their product, from raw or to finished metal. Even as they maintain international projects like the massive Grasberg mine overseas, Freeport's U.S. focus is what makes them strategically resilient. They serve construction and clean energy companies, industries that are themselves being localized and protected by U.S. policy. Second, MP Materials. Ticker MP. If there's one company that quietly sits at the intersection of national security, clean energy, and next-gen technology, it's this one. They operate the Mountain Pass mine, tucked away in the Mojave Desert of California. And that mine isn't just another excavation site. It holds a title that very few can claim, the largest rare earth mine in the Western Hemisphere. When we talk about rare earths, we're talking about the invisible engine behind everything modern. Smartphones, electric vehicles, fighter jets, wind turbines, satellites, robotics. And until recently, nearly all of that rare earth supply came from one place: China. China dominates over 80 to 90% of the rare earth processing market. That's not just market share, that's geopolitical leverage. So, when China decides to restrict exports or tighten controls, it becomes a national security issue. That's where MP Materials steps in, not just as a mining company, but as a solution to a strategic vulnerability. MP Materials isn't stopping at extraction. They've already started domestic refining of one of the most important magnetic materials, neodymium praseodymium, or NPR. This is the stuff that goes into high-performance magnets, the kind you need in EV motors, wind turbines, defense equipment, and more. They're currently building a magnet manufacturing plant in Texas, with plans to produce automotive-grade magnets by the end of 2025. That means mined in the US, refined in the US, processed and manufactured in the US. And for investors looking at companies insulated from tariffs, shipping delays, or foreign supply shocks, that's called a defensive moat. As the world races toward clean energy transformation, the demand for rare earth magnets is projected to surge for decades. And it's not just clean energy. Rare earths are essential to modern warfare. Without them, radar systems, guidance controls, missile tech, and communication platforms simply don't work. Third, Albemarle Corporation. Ticker ALB. In the race to electrify the future, one material stands at the center of it all: lithium. And one company is right there, mining and refining it on American soil. That company is Albemarle Corporation, a global leader in specialty chemicals, and one of the most important producers of lithium compounds in the world. Now, lithium might not sound exciting on the surface. It's a soft, silvery metal that doesn't do much by itself. But combine it with the right chemistry, and you get the beating heart of every electric vehicle battery, every smartphone, every grid-scale energy storage unit. Albemarle operate in Chile, Australia, and elsewhere, but their domestic presence is what makes them strategically essential in the era of supply chain realignment and rising tariffs. In Nevada, Albemarle runs the Silver Peak lithium mine, the only operational lithium brine extraction site in the US. And in North Carolina, they've established processing plants that convert raw lithium into battery-grade compounds used by EV and electronics manufacturers across the country. They've even gone a step further, partnering with the US federal government to expand and strengthen domestic lithium production. It's part of a national effort to reduce dependence on foreign critical minerals and to build a more resilient clean energy infrastructure. That means federal support, strategic backing, and priority access to incentives, things competitors based solely overseas simply can't access. And it's not just EVs. Lithium is also used in consumer electronics, military-grade power systems, and increasingly in renewable energy storage for solar and wind power. This positions Albemarle not just as a commodity producer, but as a key enabler of America's energy transition. Fourth, Nucor Corporation. Ticker NUMI. Nucor Corporation, the largest steel producer in the United States. Nucor operates dozens of steel mills and recycling facilities across the U.S. Its operations are deeply embedded in the fabric of American industry, serving construction, automotive, infrastructure, and manufacturing sectors. But here's where things get really interesting. Nucor doesn't rely on imported iron ore like traditional steel producers. Instead, it uses electric arc furnaces, or EAFs, modern, efficient systems that melt down scrap steel sourced domestically. Think about that for a second. While other steelmakers are importing raw materials from across the globe, Nucor is recycling America's old steel to build its future. It's local, it's sustainable, and it's resilient. This homegrown model gives Nucor a powerful edge, especially in today's economic environment. And when the U.S. imposes tariffs on foreign steel, something powerful happens. Those tariffs act as a price floor, allowing companies like Nucor to raise prices without worrying about being undercut by cheaper, imported alternatives. And here's another powerful aspect of Nucor's model, its decentralization. Most industrial giants operate from central hubs, but Nucor's facilities are spread out across the U.S., allowing it to respond quickly to regional demand. If a construction boom happens in Texas or manufacturing accelerates in the Midwest, Nucor doesn't have to ship across oceans or wait for port clearance. They supply domestic demand with domestic steel, fast roads, bridges, stadiums, factories, electric vehicle plants. All of it requires steel, and lots of it. Finally, air products and chemicals. Ticker app. When we talk about the backbone of modern industry, the stuff that keeps factories running, hospitals operating, and tech humming, we're not always talking about raw materials you can touch. Sometimes, the most essential components are invisible, and that's exactly what Air Products and Chemicals, Inc. delivers. Gases. Vital ones. Oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, and more. This company is one of the world's leading suppliers of industrial gases and related equipment, with a footprint across energy, chemicals, electronics, semiconductors, healthcare, and even aerospace. From steel plants to chip fabs, from oil refineries to cancer treatment centers, Air Products is quietly, but critically, supplying the elements that make modern systems run. But what makes them truly stand out in 2025 isn't just what they produce, it's how and where they produce it. Air Products focus on domestic production, with facilities and distribution networks spread across the United States. They've built an infrastructure that reaches into nearly every major U.S. industrial zone, giving them the ability to deliver gases where they're needed, when they're needed, without relying on overseas supply chains. Air Products isn't just any chemical company. They're leading some of the largest clean hydrogen projects in the world, and many of them are based right here on U.S. soil. Their work is fueling the transition toward low and zero carbon energy, a goal shared by both federal and state governments. In fact, their hydrogen plants are at the center of America's push to decarbonize heavy industry and transportation, making them a critical player in the new energy economy. And while hydrogen may be the buzzword, the core business is rock solid. Their gases power a wide range of essential, recession-resistant sectors: hospitals, data centers, refineries, chip manufacturers, pharmaceutical labs. Another advantage, Air Products relies heavily on locally sourced raw materials and regional distribution networks. That means fewer delays, fewer tariff impacts, and more resilience in the face of global disruptions. They've essentially built a shockproof supply chain, from extraction to processing to delivery, all operating within U.S. borders. So, there you have it, 5 organizations, all deeply rooted in the U.S., thriving in a world where globalization is on pause. They don't depend majorly on overseas supply chains. They're not waiting on large shipments from foreign ports. They're significantly producing, processing, and delivering, all within America. And that makes them incredibly interesting in this era of tariffs, trade wars, and localization. In the next video, we'll cover the energy sector, another resilient group that's playing a major role in this macro reset. Until then, if you found this breakdown helpful, give it a like, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to Markets and Global Trends. Let's decode the future, one resilient sector at a time.